Something is moving in the dark and you are not supposed to see it. You descend past the last trace of sunlight into water so black it feels solid. Down here, the ocean does not feel empty. It feels occupied. For centuries, sailors described a presence that appeared without warning. Long arms rising from the depths. A ship seized. Men dragged into darkness. They called it the Kraken, and science dismissed it as a myth born from fear and storms. But here is the contradiction. The stories never stopped. In June 2019, researchers operating deep-sea equipment in the Gulf of Mexico recorded something enormous moving through the darkness. It was not a legend. It was a living giant squid, documented alive in its natural habitat for the first time in those waters, according to Florida International University. Then, on March 9, 2025, during a deep ocean expedition near the South Sandwich Islands in the South Atlantic, scientists captured footage of something even more unsettling. A colossal squid, filmed alive, confirmed by researchers and released publicly weeks later. These were not exaggerations. They were verified discoveries. Now imagine what that means. For hundreds of years, people were not inventing monsters. They were encountering animals so rare, so massive, and so hostile to surface exploration that humanity simply lacked the tools to confirm their existence. You are descending into a world where pressure can crush steel, where light disappears in seconds, where a predator can emerge, vanish, and leave no trace behind. This is why the Kraken legend survived. Because the ocean kept its distance. You are watching Science Revealed. And in this episode, we are not asking whether the Kraken was real. We are asking what people actually saw, why it terrified them, and how modern science finally uncovered the truth behind one of the most enduring ocean myths in history. Because if creatures like this can remain hidden for centuries, the most unsettling question is not what they were. It is what else is still down there. For most of modern history, science treated the Kraken as a misunderstanding. Sailors, exhausted and frightened, were thought to be misreading storms, tangled nets, or dying whales. Long arms became waves. Massive shadows became imagination. And the deep sea itself was written off as a place too empty, too hostile, to hide something so large for so long. That belief felt reasonable. For centuries, humans explored the ocean from the surface. We dragged nets. We followed coastlines. We rarely went deeper than a few hundred meters, and when we did, we stayed only briefly. Below that depth, pressure increases rapidly, light disappears completely, and even modern equipment struggles to survive. From the surface, the deep ocean looked quiet. From the surface, it looked known. But that assumption rested on a dangerous flaw. It assumed absence meant non-existence. The truth is, until recently, humans had almost no eyes in the deep sea. Less than a fraction of 1% of the ocean floor had been directly observed. And in that darkness, evolution was free to build creatures that did not need to be seen. Everything began to change when technology finally caught up. In the early 21st century, deep-sea exploration shifted from brief descents to sustained observation. Remotely operated vehicles could stay down for hours. Cameras became sensitive enough to function without blinding lights. And scientists stopped chasing animals, instead waiting patiently for them to appear. That patience paid off. In June 2019, researchers working with deep-sea equipment in the Gulf of Mexico recorded a giant squid alive in its natural environment. Not washed ashore, not dying, actively moving through the darkness. This was not a rumor or an anecdote. The footage was documented, analyzed, and confirmed by marine biologists. A creature that had lived in stories and museum specimens was suddenly undeniable. But that discovery was only the beginning. On March 9, 2025, during a deep ocean expedition in the South Atlantic near the South Sandwich Islands, researchers encountered something even rarer. A colossal squid, filmed alive in the deep. An animal larger and heavier than the giant squid, confirmed and released publicly weeks later. This mattered for one critical reason. The colossal squid was not supposed to be easy to find. It lives in extreme depths. It avoids light. It rarely encounters anything capable of recording it. And yet there it was. This forced a scientific reassessment that could not be ignored. If animals of this size could remain undocumented for centuries, then historical accounts of massive tentacled creatures could no longer be dismissed outright. Instead of asking, did sailors exaggerate? Scientists had to ask, what did they actually see? Marine biologists began revisiting old assumptions. They compared historical descriptions to modern anatomy. Long arms, powerful suction, sudden appearances near the surface during storms or feeding events. The parallels were uncomfortable. Giant and colossal squid are capable of rapid vertical movement. They can rise from depth quickly. They can interact with large prey. And when injured or dying, they can surface in ways that would have appeared monstrous to anyone without context. This did not mean ships were being dragged under by sea monsters. But it did mean that the foundation of the Kraken legend was no longer imaginary. The paradigm had shifted. The Kraken was not a single creature. It was not a myth invented from nothing. It was a pattern built from rare encounters, extreme conditions, and animals that science itself had barely documented. You are living in the first era where the deep ocean is being observed continuously, where cameras wait instead of chase, where discoveries are recorded instead of lost. And that creates a disturbing realization. If this much was hidden in plain darkness for centuries, the most important question is not what sailors got wrong. It is what else they saw that we are only now beginning to understand. Because the deeper the evidence goes, the clearer it becomes. The Kraken was never disproven. It was simply unexplored. To understand why the Kraken legend endured, you have to understand the animal behind it. The giant squid is not just large. It is built for a world humans were never meant to enter. Adult giant squid can reach lengths of more than 13 meters, according to documented specimens, with 2 elongated feeding tentacles extending far beyond the main body. Its eyes, the largest of any known animal, can measure over 25 centimeters across, allowing it to detect faint movement in near-total darkness. This is not excess. It is survival. In the deep ocean, light vanishes quickly. At depths beyond 1,000 meters, sunlight is gone entirely. Vision becomes a liability unless it is extreme. That is why the giant squid's eyes are so massive. They are designed to detect the faint silhouettes of prey and predators, even when only bioluminescent flashes disturb the dark. Now consider the colossal squid. Heavier than the giant squid and more compact in form, the colossal squid is believed to be the largest invertebrate on Earth by mass. Its arms are shorter but thicker, lined with rotating hooks instead of simple suction cups, a feature that allows it to grip struggling prey with terrifying efficiency. This is where the legend begins to feel less exaggerated. These animals are not passive drifters. They are active predators. Giant and colossal squid hunt by ambush. They remain nearly motionless in the water column, conserving energy, until something moves within reach. Then in a sudden burst they strike. Tentacles shoot forward. Hooks or suction cups lock on. A powerful beak, hidden at the center of the arms, delivers crushing force capable of slicing flesh cleanly. If you encountered this in open water without warning, without context, you would not see an animal. You would see a nightmare. Their environment makes this worse. The deep sea is not empty space. It is vast, layered, and hostile. Pressure increases by 1 atmosphere every 10 meters, meaning that at the depths these squid inhabit, the force pressing in on their bodies would destroy unprotected human equipment instantly. Yet these animals thrive there. Their tissues are adapted to resist compression. Their bodies lack air-filled spaces. Their chemistry functions under conditions that would shut down most surface life. This is why they remained hidden for so long. You cannot trawl for animals that live thousands of meters down. You cannot easily chase predators that appear only briefly, then vanish back into darkness. And you cannot rely on surface encounters when most of their lives unfold far below. When injured, dying, or feeding near the surface, these squid sometimes rise into human view. That is when the stories began. Long arms appearing beside ships. Massive bodies glimpsed in storm-tossed seas. Struggles mistaken for attacks. Over time, rare encounters became patterns. Patterns became warnings. Warnings became legends. And yet, even now, scientists believe we have seen only a fraction of these animals alive in their natural habitat. You are not looking at a creature that wants to be known. You are looking at a creature that evolved to remain unseen. That is what makes this so unsettling. Because the Kraken was never a single beast. It was a biological reality intersecting with human fear, at the very edge of what we could observe. And the deeper we look, the clearer it becomes. The legend was not built on imagination. It was built on scale. Even after modern footage, one problem refuses to disappear. The Kraken stories do not describe a single, neat encounter. They describe chaos. Sailors spoke of multiple arms striking at once, of ships slowed, turned, or trapped, of something vast enough to feel intentional. For a long time, science rejected these accounts because they did not fit a clean biological model. Squid were solitary, encounters were rare, and no known animal could overpower a ship. But the deeper researchers looked, the more uncomfortable the pattern became. Historical records from different centuries, cultures, and oceans describe remarkably similar events. Long appendages rising alongside vessels, violent struggles during storms, damage to rigging, nets, and hull-adjacent structures. These accounts were not identical, but they were consistent. That consistency forced scientists to confront an unsettling possibility. Not that a single monster attacked ships, but that multiple rare factors were converging at once. Start with storms. Most Kraken encounters occur during severe weather. This matters because storms disrupt the vertical structure of the ocean. Cold water rises. Warm water sinks. Deep-dwelling animals are displaced upward. At the same time, storms attract prey. Large fish, injured animals, and drifting carcasses concentrate near the surface. For a deep-sea predator, this is an opportunity. Now add human vessels. Wooden ships, heavy nets, and dangling rigging create silhouettes and vibrations unlike anything found naturally in the ocean. To an ambush predator, they are unfamiliar, but not invisible. This is where modern biology begins to challenge old assumptions. Giant and colossal squid do not attack ships in the way legends describe. But they can and do interact with large objects when feeding or disoriented. There are documented cases of squid arms found wrapped around fishing gear, of suction scars discovered on whales, suggesting violent encounters between massive animals in the deep, of nets torn apart by forces far exceeding those of typical fish. None of this proves intent, but it does establish capability. And capability changes how the stories are interpreted. If a dying or injured squid surfaced during a storm, entangled in rigging, thrashing in panic, the scene would be terrifying. Multiple arms striking wood. The ship slowing. Men shouting in the dark. That is not a monster. That is an animal in crisis. But here is where the mystery deepens. Some accounts describe encounters lasting far longer than panic alone would explain. Minutes, sometimes hours. This raised a troubling question. Could more than one animal have been involved? In regions where prey concentrates, multiple squid may gather independently. Not coordinated. Not intelligent collaboration. Simply coincidence. To humans on a ship, coincidence looks like intention. Arms appearing at different points along the hull. Movement from multiple directions. No clear beginning or end. This interpretation does not require myth. It requires scale, rarity, and fear. Yet, even this explanation leaves gaps. Why are confirmed modern encounters still so rare? Why do most footage captures show juveniles rather than full-sized adults? And why do some historical descriptions suggest animals larger than any squid ever measured? This is where science draws a firm line. There is no evidence of squid large enough to drag ships under the sea. Physics does not allow it. Energy requirements alone make such a creature impossible. But impossibility does not erase the mystery. Because the ocean does not reveal its largest animals easily. Because most of the deep sea remains unobserved. And because biology has a long history of surprising us when observation improves. Scientists now agree on one thing. The Kraken stories were not nonsense. They were distorted signals from a world humans barely understood. And distortion is inevitable when fear meets darkness. The mystery is no longer whether something was there. The mystery is how much of it we still have not seen. By this point, the question is no longer whether the Kraken stories came from real animals. The question is which explanation fits the evidence best. Scientists have tested three main theories. The first is the simplest. Exaggeration. According to this idea, sailors encountered ordinary squid, misjudged size in darkness, and amplified the story over time. Fear stretches memory. Retelling sharpens drama. And legends grow with every voyage. There is truth here. Human perception is unreliable under stress. Storms distort distance. Darkness erases scale. But exaggeration alone fails to explain consistency. Independent accounts from different regions describe similar arm lengths, similar movements, and similar circumstances. That suggests something more than imagination. The second theory focuses on single-animal encounters. In this explanation, a lone giant or colossal squid surfaces during a storm, becomes entangled in rigging or nets, and thrashes violently while attempting to escape. From the deck of a ship, this would appear deliberate. This theory matches known squid behavior. Squid are powerful. Their arms can exert enormous force. Their beaks are capable of cutting through tough material. And when stressed, they do not behave predictably. Calculations support this scenario. A giant squid weighing several hundred kilograms could generate enough force to damage wooden structures and heavy nets. It could slow a ship. It could create chaos. But it could not sink one. The energy required to drag a vessel beneath the surface exceeds what any known invertebrate could produce. Even the largest squid would exhaust itself long before achieving such a feat. That brings us to the third theory. Multiple animal coincidence. This idea proposes that during rare events, storms, mass prey movement, or vertical water mixing, several squid may independently converge near the surface. Not coordinated. Not intelligent collaboration. Simply overlap. To a human observer, overlap looks intentional. Arms appearing at different points. Movement from several directions. No single source to focus on. This theory explains why some encounters lasted longer than panic alone would allow. It also explains why sailors described feeling surrounded. But it introduces another problem. If such events were possible, why are they not observed today? The answer lies in exposure. Modern ships are built differently. Steel hulls, cleaner profiles, less dangling equipment, and modern observation is limited. Cameras rarely remain at the surface during storms. Research vessels avoid dangerous conditions. Deep-sea animals are still encountered mostly by chance. So scientists compare probabilities instead. How often do storms coincide with squid vertical movement? How often do ships pass through those regions at the same time? How often does anyone survive to describe it? The overlap is vanishingly small. That does not make the stories false. It makes them rare. When all three theories are tested against biology, physics, and historical data, one conclusion emerges. No single explanation accounts for every detail. But together they form a coherent picture. The Kraken was not a monster with intent. It was a collision of rare animals, extreme conditions, and human fear. And that conclusion matters. Because it shows how easily the unknown becomes supernatural when observation is limited. And it reveals something more unsettling. If the ocean can produce legends simply by hiding its largest inhabitants, then mystery is not an exception. It is the default. After centuries of speculation, science can finally say this much with confidence. The Kraken was never a single creature. It was never a supernatural force hiding beneath the waves. And it was never proof that the ocean was ruled by monsters beyond biology. What it was instead is far more revealing. The Kraken was the result of real animals intersecting with human limitation. Giant squid exist. Colossal squid exist. They are massive, elusive, and perfectly adapted to regions of the ocean that humans rarely enter and struggle to observe. Modern footage confirms that these animals are not myths. They move with precision. They hunt with efficiency. And they inhabit depths where pressure, darkness, and cold make sustained observation nearly impossible. Science now agrees on the foundation of the legend. Rare encounters occurred when deep-sea squid were displaced by storms, injury, or feeding opportunities near the surface. In those moments, sailors saw long arms, powerful movement, and violent struggles they could not explain. Without context, without repeated observation, and without the ability to measure what they were seeing, fear filled the gaps. That fear did the rest. But even with today's technology, certainty has limits. Most of the deep ocean remains unexplored. Cameras reach only small windows of space. Encounters are brief. And the largest adults of these species may spend most of their lives far beyond the reach of human instruments. This means the Kraken legend is not fully resolved. Not because the monster was real, but because the ocean is still largely unknown. Every major leap in deep-sea exploration has revealed animals once thought impossible. Each new expedition adds detail but also raises new questions. What behaviors have never been recorded? How large do the oldest individuals grow? And how many interactions between humans and deep-sea predators were lost to history, unobserved and unmeasured? The resolution is not disappointment. It is perspective. The Kraken was not proof of magic. It was proof of scale, of rarities, of how little humans once knew about the world beneath them. And as exploration continues, one truth remains. The ocean does not need myths to be unsettling. Reality is already vast enough. The Kraken was never a monster hiding beneath the waves. It was a reminder of how easily the unknown becomes terrifying when we lack the tools to understand it. Real animals, extreme environments, and centuries of unanswered questions colliding in the dark. Today, we finally have cameras that can follow those questions deeper than ever before. But even now, the ocean keeps most of its secrets. If this story changed the way you think about sea monsters, let me know. Do you think legends like the Kraken were rare encounters with real animals, or warnings shaped by fear and survival? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read them and they shape what we explore next. If you want to keep diving into the mysteries hidden beneath the surface, make sure you're subscribed to Science Revealed. In our next episode, we'll examine a deep-sea discovery that scientists still can't fully explain, an encounter that challenges everything we know about life under crushing pressure. Because the deeper we explore, the clearer one truth becomes. The ocean isn't finished surprising us.